loser high schooler who smelled like an anime convention all day long, causing him to be bullied. Even after being isekai'd, he was still a pathetic loser until he stole a fruit that gave him a cheat leveling ability, making him so overpowered that his riz attracted all kinds of creatures. One day while at school, Seiichi was being bullied by his classmates once again when they heard a voice claiming to be God. God told them to form groups and make sure they stayed together, because he was going to transport them to an isekai world as heroes. He gives each student a different skill and an ability to read others' statuses. When Seiichi's status was checked by a fellow classmate, he had the lowest stats and his race was even stated as barely human. This made them mock him and revealed they would never allow a useless piece of garbage in their group. Everyone except for Seiichi was transported as his classmates didn't want to be paired with the fatso, so he was left behind. However, God noticed he was still there, and when he realized that he was the unwanted loser, he gave Seiichi an extra special skill and transported him as well. Alone and hungry after spending 5 days in a forest, Seiichi was still pulling a massive gaslighting and deluding himself into thinking he was the main character who will somehow level up without doing shit. He was so hungry that he tried to eat a worm he saw crawling on the ground, but before he could pick it up, something jumped out of the bushes and stepped on him. As he lay on the ground, he saw a fruit and immediately picked it up. He appraised it and discovered it was called Fruit of Evolution, but it had no additional information on it. Seiichi quickly ate the horribly tasting fruit thinking he'll be transformed into a Riz Lord. However, he then heard a voice prompting him to activate the fruit. Startled, he wondered what the voice was and what it meant. But when nothing happened, he got up and went in search of more food. He came across a group of monkeys, and when he checked their stats, he discovered they were level 120 monkeys with higher IQ than him.
Emotional damage!
And this made him feel insulted that monkeys were above him. As he watched them and wondered what they were up to, the monkeys soon left, and he immediately went to pick up the fruits they left behind. He put them in his item box and noticed the bottles that were there. Using his appraisal skill, he discovered they were high-grade recovery potions, so he wasted no time in stealing them too. In a town somewhere, the other students that had been transported stood talking. A group approached Kanazuki, Seiichi's senior from school, and asked where Seiichi was, but she told them that he had been transported to a different location, and they wondered if he was doing okay. Meanwhile, Seiichi was about to eat a mushroom he had found, but it had no information on it. However, the idiot still ate it and immediately fell to the ground in pain, and even though he was about to die, Seiichi decided to die eating. He ate the remaining Fruit of Evolution he had, and immediately he felt better. He had also acquired poison resistance, and his rank increased. But before he could celebrate his rank increment, he was attacked by a clever monkey. It managed to injure him, and he immediately drank one of the recovery potions he stole. Seiichi stood up and tried to challenge the monkey, but since he was only as strong as an NPC, he was once again beaten up. Before the monkey could eat him, it took a whiff of his natural garbage-smelling cologne and died. The monkey's remains turned into items, and he acquired new skills from them. Among the items was a book about clever monkeys, and Seiichi was surprised he could read the book, as it was written in a language he had never seen before. It was then he realized that the special skill he had been given was the reason he could read the book. Just then, the voice informed him that evolution had commenced. He had no idea what was going on, but he was in extreme pain. When the pain subsided, he got up and realized he was not only thinner, but his stats had increased incredibly. However, he soon learned that he hadn't completed his evolution and would still go through the pain at least 9 more times. He was, however, pissed because he was still at level 1, even though he had defeated a level 120 cleaver monkey. Seiichi had spent 5 months in the forest and had since been able to utilize the knowledge he had gotten from the clever monkey to survive. He defeated a level 311 acro wolf and acquired new skills as well as a legendary water spirit dagger. He picked up the book containing the Acro-Wolf knowledge and saw a spot that was hidden on the map, which made him remember that it was the same way on the Clever Monkey book and decided to check it out later. He immediately went through another evolution, and when it was over, he wondered what would happen when he went through the final evolution. As he lay wondering about the final evolution, he realized that he was surrounded by clever monkeys. Before he could react, a big red ugly-ass gorilla with a pink flower on its head fell from the sky and demanded Seiichi fight it. Even though he had gotten stronger, he was still a very big coward and fearfully asked if he could decline. But the gorilla refused. It assured him that the monkeys won't interfere with the fight, and Seiichi feared for his life because it was at level 700. When the gorilla threw a punch, Seiichi dodged it and was shocked by how strong it was while also noticing the gorilla giving him some serious lovey-dovey eyes. It was saying how much it loved strong men. And that was when Seichi realized it was actually a she, and he was disgusted by the fact that his Riz could only attract gorillas. He used a slash attack, which the gorilla easily dodged, and it threw a punch at him, which he wasn't able to dodge, and was sent flying across the forest. The gorilla was so impressed by the fact that her flash fist didn't kill him and said she wanted him since Seichi was exactly her spec. However, he made it clear he wasn't interested in a gorilla, but she still introduced herself as Seria, while trying to act all cute and shy. He asked why an ugly gorilla had the name of a pretty girl, and all Seria heard was that she was pretty. Still disgusted, he used the adamant claw skill he had gotten from the Acrowolf to attack her, but she easily jumped out of the way and flew up. She used air thrust and came down on him like a nuclear missile. Seichi dodged it and hoped that the gorilla had taken itself out by doing that, but she stood up and expressed her joy at him being able to dodge her attack. Seichi then used the water spirit's dagger to amplify his water magic, raising his hand above his head. He used a skill called Fall Disaster that would unleash a lot of water on his opponent. However, since he was as dumb as a doorknob, he didn't direct the water at Seria and was instead hit by his own attack. Dripping wet, he tried to cover up his own stupidity by acting cool and telling Seria she was good. However, she immediately told him that she had nothing to do with what had happened, and he was embarrassed that a gorilla had called him out on his foolishness. She didn't give him time to recover as she used Flash Fist to beat the shit out of him. Seichi's miserable life flashed before his eyes, and as a last resort, he unleashed his body odor, which had now become a skill called Stench Performer. Instead of killing her like it had done to the clever monkey, Seria declared her love for him and asked him to marry her. At Seria's house, Seichi demanded she let him go, but Seria told him that he was her husband, and he had to stay with her. Seichi pointed out that she was a Dan gorilla, and he was a human, so there was no way they could be married. Instead of responding, she told him to eat it. When he took a bite, he was surprised by how delicious it was. Seria revealed she had made new clothes for him, and Seichi was a few seconds away from losing his mind, because he couldn't understand why a gorilla was giving wife material. She then asked if that made her a good bride, and he said yes, if she married a gorilla, but she insisted that they got married. He asked her how she was able to talk, and she told him she had found some books in a cave and read them. She showed him the books, and while reading them, he instantly acquired the skills. While he watched Seria catch fish, Seichi plotted his escape, but before he could make it far, he came face to face with a giant spider and screamed out like a little bitch. Seria immediately came to his rescue and punched it, sending it flying across the sky. She asked a shaken Seichi if he was okay, and he told her yes, but he was surprised by how worried she was about him, which made him realize he'd been a shallow prick for judging her based on appearance. While they ate, Seria told Seichi that she and the clever monkeys would go out to gather the fruit of evolution. She asked if he knew what it was, and he immediately said no, even though he had stolen the ones she had previously gathered from the clever monkeys. She told him that eating 10 of the fruit would let one become overpowered. However, eating 11 would kill you. She also mentioned that she herself had already eaten 10, but someone had stolen the ones she had gathered to give to her future husband. Seichi got scared when she said she'd kill the thief that stole them, so he immediately begged for his life, admitting that he was the one that stole them. She forgave, but said since he'd eaten them, they were getting married. The look on his face made Seria ask if he hated her, and he said no, which immediately made her pull up dressed as a bride and begged him to get married. Seria soon left to go hunting, and Seichi used it as an opportunity to escape. Meanwhile, at another place, Seichi's classmates are training. Kanazuki and her friends recalled that they had been tasked with defeating the demon lord by the king on the day they had arrived. Back in the forest, Seichi was running away from Seria, who discovered he was missing. He came across a cave with an intimidating aura, but ran inside when he heard Seria's voice close by. Inside the cave, he opened a door and entered a room where he saw a skeleton with glowing red eyes seated on a throne. The skeleton was impressed that he had been able to reach his room and believed he had to be strong to have managed that. Seichi, on the other hand, saw him as dangerous and decided to check his stats, which revealed that he was the Dark Lord Xenos and was at level 1. He was relieved because he could easily take him on, but Xenos told him to look again, which he did. It turned out that he had tricked him and was actually at level 1500. He told Seichi that he had thought the first person to enter into his room would be a strong person, but instead a cannon fodder loser with NPC energy had walked in. He then tried to stab Seichi, but Seria got in the way and was stabbed instead. Seichi called out her name, which made her happy that he had called her name for the first time since they met. He tried to give her recovery potions, but she said it was no use since she was already dead. She explained that she was still able to speak to him because of her skill called Kaiser Majesty, which kept her going for a while. Seiichi bawled his eyes out, apologizing for how he had treated her, but she told him not to worry and asked him to smile as her last request. Meanwhile, Xenos, who stood back watching their emotional farewell, found the whole thing ridiculous. Seiichi told him to shut his web-infested mouth because he didn't understand them. Making it the first time in his pathetic life, he bravely stood up to someone. He attacked Xenos, who easily blocked his attacks. And while they fought, Seiichi told him how wonderful Saria had been. Xenos was surprised by his outburst and asked if he actually had feelings for a freaking gorilla, and Seiichi declared that he loved Saria. Seiichi then used Ocean Impact, and actually using his brain this time around, directed its flow at Xenos, who used a skill called Magic Hole to trap the water. He told Seiichi to give up, saying a weakling like him could never defeat him. However, he refused, claiming that he hadn't accepted Saria's feelings for him. So, fueled by the great power of love, and using his skill of instant movement, he attacked a surprised Xenos and stabbed him. Xenos accepted his defeat and thanked Seiichi for showing him true love. But before he disappeared, Seiichi saw a young woman appear and hug him. As they hugged, he told her he was going to protect her this time around. Seiichi watched them disappear, but soon remembered Saria and ran to her. She too had started to disappear, but he kissed her right before she disappeared. A bright light shone, and lying where Saria had been before was a beautiful girl with red hair and a pink flower in her hair. Seiichi was so surprised when she got up and ran to hug him that he had a serious nosebleed. He was so shocked when he realized that she was Saria. Seiichi read Xenos' story and learned that he had been a Nobel 1500 years ago, but was betrayed by his wife and the Emperor. The only person who stood by him was his maid Maria, who loved him, but she died after she sacrificed herself to save him. After her death, he became a vengeful monster and spent his days alone in the cave. Moved by their story, Seiichi told Saria that he was glad he was able to reunite the two again. Soon after, Seiichi's final evolution began, and when it was over, he became even more handsome. But he told Saria that he wanted to leave the forest, and she said she'd go anywhere with him. Just then, a little sheep appeared and introduced himself as Miss Sheep, the dungeon administrator. He claimed he had come because they were the first to clear the dungeon, and Seiichi pointed out that he was a bit late, so he admitted that he got held up because he was enjoying Seiichi's suffering as he went through his final evolution. He then went ahead to give Seiichi the rewards for clearing the dungeon, which were a Fruit of Evolution cultivation set and a 10-day travel set. He also gave Saria a dress and Seiichi a helmet before he transported them out of the forest, which allowed them to begin their journey. Seiichi and Saria decide to head to the nearest town and register at the Adventurers Guild to get their IDs, but on the way they encounter a level 88 slime. However, Seiichi easily defeated it and realized he had become overpowered. Among the items that dropped was a pair of boots, which he gave them some skill cards that allowed him to level up. Seiichi wasn't happy about leveling up because he felt he was becoming a monster, and he didn't like it. When he took off his helmet, it turned into a robe, and Saria handed him the note that fell out of it. It was a letter from Miss Sheep, and in it he explained that the helmet changed because Seiichi had leveled up and the robe will conceal his true strength from others. At the town gate, Seiichi lied that he and Saria had lost their IDs. So the guard there asked them to touch the Gem of Truth to determine their criminal status before he could let them enter. Once they did, he allowed them pass through and warned them to be careful of the guild when they told him of their plan to register there. He then introduced himself as Claude and asked them to come to him if they needed any help. At the guild, Seiichi thought Claude was